Hi, everyone. Welcome. Happy holidays to you and your loved ones, wherever you happen to be and however you celebrate. I am Reverend Garrett Foster. I'm a graduate of One Spirit's seminary program and interspiritual counseling program, and a current dean in the ISC program. For your best viewing experience, I recommend going into speaker view, and you can do that in your upper right-hand corner. And if you haven't already downloaded the program, it is in the chat room. Thank you.
So welcome, each and every one of you. We're so glad that you're here today with us. And at this time, especially this year, it is so important that we have each other, that we have community, that we are not alone. My name is Rev.Dr. Sushmita Mukherjee, and I'm a dean in the seminary program. So those of you who know me know that I sometimes get a little, shall we say, uncomfortable around the words love and light. The reason why I do that is because I feel that we have this culture that privileges light over darkness, and we hear things like rise above the darkness, banish or conquer your shadow, or become light bearer, and all that is great. But sometimes that comes at a cost of not valuing what's othered, what's devalued in culture. And it is my feeling that sometimes the taproots, at least one of the taproots of racism, of colonialism, lives in this privileging of light over darkness. So what we want to do today is to really hold both, hold light and hold darkness, and see how that works for us. And before I turn it over to the ceremony, I want to be the geek that I am, and I want to just explore the fact that we're seeing each other on the screen and what exactly is happening. So as I look at your image on the screen, light rays from the screen are hitting my retina, and they're forming an image. But that image is meaningless until electrical signals from my eyes go to the back of my head. That's where the visual cortex lives, deep in the brain, covered by this thick skull. And that's where this information, this electrical impulse, is being decoded. Then the visual cortex is comparing that to my experiences, my memories, and maybe even the collective bank of images that we all have. And only then meaning is being created. So for me to really see you on the screen today, I need both light and darkness. And that's what our evening together is going to be about holding both light and darkness. And we'll do that using John O'Donoghue's poem called For Light. And for those of you who haven't downloaded the schedule of the program yet, I want to name that the music that you're hearing is coming from our dear friend, Reverend Jim Walker, who's my classmate from 2017. He's a beautiful musician. And all the slideshows that you're seeing and all the slideshows you're going to see have all been orchestrated by the wizard in the elf hat, David Renata. And during the service, we are going to have 5 presentations from different cultures, different religious traditions, and from literally all over the world. So, and the only other thing that I want to say is that if at the end of the ceremony, we'll have a candle lighting together. So if you want to participate, just have a light or a candle available. And now I hand it over to my dear brother, Reverend Garrett Foster.
Thank you, Sushmita. Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again. Simon and Garfunkel's haunting lyrics resonate for people across the globe because they touch a place deep inside each one of us, a place that not only recognizes the darkness that is a part of all creation, but an old friend, if we choose to look at it that way. Rumi says, "What hurts you blesses you. Darkness is your candle." When has darkness been your candle? When has a time that seemed so bleak actually been a period of incubation and gestation for something extraordinary? I have had many dark times in my life, times I thought I wouldn't survive. I could not see my way out. I wasn't using darkness as my candle. Our individual circumstances may be different, but I know I am not alone. When I came out in my late 20s, I was terrified of the backlash from those who swore that people like me were sinners, that we deserved to be banished to the darkness without rights, without the light of the rest of society. I lost my job. I lost loved ones. I turned the darkness against myself and tried to swallow a bottle of pills. Looking back, there were so many gifts that came from a lifetime of hiding in the shadows. I met the soulmate that I am still with 31 years later. For every person who shunned me, there was another who welcomed me with open arms. I became more sensitive and committed to standing up for others who face injustice. I became a light in the darkness. May Sarton says, "Without darkness, nothing comes to birth, as without light, nothing flowers." A few years ago, I realized how true that really is. My darkest night of the soul led me to this beautiful One Spirit community. It led me to finding myself. I was in a state of depression and confusion so dark, I didn't think I would find my way out. My soulmate and I were estranged. I was involved in a serious accident and facing a lawsuit. I was in a toxic job. I was diagnosed with cancer for the second time. I kept asking, why me? Then I found a community of people who accepted me exactly as I was, and I accepted them. I found prayer and the transformative power of praying with others. I discovered unconditional gratitude. There was still darkness, but I saw the wonder and awe in all things, no matter the circumstances. My old friend darkness wasn't so scary after all. Instead of asking why me, I began to ask why not me. I realized I was not alone in the darkness or the light. I realized that they are really one and the same, and that both are necessary for our highest good. Louis Untermeyer says, "Come, drink the mystic wine of night, brimming with silence and the stars, while earth, bathed in this holy light, is seen without its scars." My newfound faith was tested last year when I was diagnosed with cancer yet again. I can honestly say there wasn't a day that I wasn't filled with gratitude, when I didn't see myself wrapped in a blanket of stars. Many of those stars are with us here tonight, and I thank each and every one of them. I'm not saying that serious events in our lives should be taken lightly, just as light moments should not be taken too darkly. We all know people who face extreme adversity with grace and ease and peace. And we also know people who have the world at their fingertips, but are miserable. For me, the greatest mystery is in finding the perfect balance to live in the space between darkness and light. to understand deep in my heart and belly that no matter how dark the night becomes, our inner light has the potential to crack open the seed that becomes an exquisite flower. It happens as part of the great cycle of life, and we are all part of that amazing cycle. There has perhaps never been a time in modern history when the entire world has been plunged into darkness at the same time, when we have felt our individual and collective place in the cycle so intimately. We are all experiencing COVID, racial and social tensions, political divisions, the uncertainty of our beautiful planet. My blessing for each one of us during this tender, tender time is that we find our own way to crack open. Imagine what the world would look like if we all began to blossom together. Now there's a holiday wish. At this point in our service and celebration, I invite you all to turn off your cameras. If there are lights on wherever you happen to be sitting, I invite you to turn those off as well, if that feels right for you. Immerse yourself in the darkness as Sushmita and I honor this season of darkness and light by reading the John O'Donohue poem, For Light, together.
Light cannot see inside things. That is what the dark is for. Minding the interior, nurturing the draw of growth through places where death in its own way turns into life.
In the glare of neon times, let our eyes not be worn by surfaces that shine with hunger made attractive.
That our thoughts may be true light, finding their way into words which have the weight of shadow to hold the layers of truth.
That we never place our trust in minds claimed by empty light, where one-sided certainties are driven by false desire.
When we look into the heart, may our eyes have the kindness and reverence of candlelight.
That the searching of our minds be equal to the oblique crevices and corners where the mystery continues to dwell, glimmering in fugitive light.
When we are confined inside the dark house of suffering, that moonlight might find a window.
When we become false and lost, that the severe noon light would cast our shadow clear.
When we love, that dawn light would lighten our feet upon the waters.
As we grow old, that twilight would illuminate treasure in the fields of memory.
And when we come to search for God, let us first be robed in night, put on the mind of morning, to feel the rush of light spread slowly inside, the color and stillness of a found world.
Namaskar. Greetings from India. I am Dr. Subhadra Desai. I am a classical vocalist of the Indian genre and a researcher on ancient Indian culture and its musical traditions. I am very happy to be with you all today. My special gratitude to Sushmita Mukherjee, who has been a very dear friend of mine since childhood. We were school friends. It's very early in the morning here in Delhi, about 5:45, but I'm sure you're having a good evening there, most of you. I will begin with a Vedic invocation, seeking benediction from gods. After which, I will go on to another hymn from the Vedas, Vedic literature, which speaks about the very close connection between light and darkness. The first prayer, where one seeks divine blessings. स्वस्तये वायुमुपब्रवामहे सोमं स्वस्ति भुवनस्य यस्पति बृहस्पतिं सर्वगणम् स्वस्तये स्वस्तये आदित्यासो भवन्तु नः स्वस्ति मित्रावरुणा स्वस्ति पथ्ये रेवती स्वस्ति न इन्द्रश्चाग्निश्च स्वस्ति नो अदिते कृधि स्वस्ति पन्थामनुचरेम सूर्याचन्द्रमसाविव पुनर्ददताग्नता जानता सङ्गमे मही ॐ। Now, I will chant a hymn from the ancient Vedic literature. The text is taken from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, one of the oldest and principal Upanishads, whose central ideas are at the spiritual core of Hinduism. The Upanishads are the most recent part of the Vedas, dating between the 7th and 5th centuries BCE. The text is Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityor ma amritam gamaya. Lead us from unreal to real, from the unreality of transitory existence to the reality of the eternal self, the absolute Brahman. Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya. Lead us from darkness to light, from the darkness of ignorance to the light of spiritual knowledge. Mrityor ma amritam gamaya. Lead us from death to immortality. The hymn identifies real and darkness with death and real with death and real and with light and immortality. Keeping with the philosophy of Vedanta, the text rejects the material world as unreal and dark and invokes the concept of transcendental reality. I sing the text now.
light cannot see inside things, that is what the dark is for, minding the interior, nurturing the draw of growth through places where death, in its own way, turns into life.
Salam, dear colleagues, peace. The amazing and inspiring Reverend Garrett asked me to speak of darkness and light from the perspective of Islam. And I agreed to share from my experience and the teachings that I know. I believe, as the Quran, Allah's word, teaches us mystically, that we have all been created differently from one another as individuals in the wombs of our mothers. And so while we all follow one path to the divine, possibly, remembering the one with the big O, we all have our individual paths. And so this is the perspective that I will speak to you from. My teachers have taught me humility in my faith. So I cannot in good conscience say that I speak for billions of people, but I speak from the heart. One heart that was created by Allah, God, and shaped by the world that she has placed me in. A few weeks ago, I thought about darkness, literally as the days were getting shorter and shorter, and figuratively as darkness, sadness, tears are also part of our lives. In the very past, I might have scoffed at the love and light people, peace and love types, as that was not necessarily my experience growing up. There was a lot of doubt, sadness, and anger when I was growing up. Where do I belong? Why don't I feel I belong here? And now, the irony of life, I belong to a Sufi order by the name of Nur, light, Ashki, love, Jarahi, which means surgeon. My Sufi name is Ashki, the one perpetually in love, and I'm co-leading with my brother Nur, light, Dhikr ceremonies, remembrance ceremonies of Allah, in tradition of the Nur Ashki Jarahi Tariqat. There you go, with the love and light. But there's also the Jarahi bit in the name that has the oomph. And I remember our Sheikha Fariha noting that these are the surgeons. It literally means surgeon, the surgeons of the heart, and maybe the surgeons helping with the darkness. Darkness, the sadness, the despair that we sometimes feel in our lives, even if outwardly all seems fine. I always felt that this was welcome in my community as well, in our practice. Somehow it seemed implied that the more the suffering, the more one could grow, the heart would be polished. We would be cooked in the pot like chickpeas to become softer. One elder brother reminded me once when I was crying, as I sometimes did in the dargah, our mosque, hiding my face behind my veil, that ours is the lacrimonious way. I had to look up the word lacrimonious, but I knew what it meant as I could feel it, the way of tears. So in a way, there's room in our community, in my faith, for that too, among all the light and the love, the nur and the ashk. There's also space for the dark. And there are ways out of it too. How? That only you, each individual person, and the one will know. There's one khabar, news in translation, from the time of the great feminist prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. It is titled, I respond profoundly to the prayer. And it says that Allah, God, tells us, I respond profoundly to the prayer of those who do not seek domination over my creatures, those who remember me, those who are merciful toward the poor, the wayfarer, the widow, every suffering person. When they are surrounded by ignorance of the world, I give them knowledge. It says Allah tells us, in the darkness, I give them light. In the darkness, I give them light. So I choose to remember that. Oh, thank you.
In the glare of neon times, let our eyes not be warned by surfaces that shine with hunger made attractive.
That our thoughts may be true light, finding their way into words which have the weight of shadow to hold the layers of truth. That we never place our trust in minds claimed by empty light, where one-sided certainties are driven by false desire.
What a year we've all had, one that could never have been imagined. My name is James Encinas. I am in Thornton, Colorado, and I'm graduated in the class of 2018 from One Spirit. This year, one where many of us have faced hardships, isolation, sickness, loss of jobs and income, separation from family and friends, our normal ways of life upended, our usual routines and patterns of living tossed up into the air. And now Christmas is upon us. Who's ready for that? Business all around us, planning, organizing beckons, shopping to do, jobs to be done, events to attend, rushing here, there, running out of time, feeling the pressure, and growing anxious. And yet, this season invites us to prepare for the celebration of Jesus coming as a human into the world in quite a different way. We're asked to slow down, to stop, look, listen, stop our usual busyness, make some space for stillness and quietness, pause to look for the signs that are all around us that Christ is already at work in our world. Listen for God speaking to us. The short piece which I'm going to leave you with and ask you to reflect on is the work of Gail Boss from her book, All Creation Waits, a body of work that helps us to see and hear as if for the first time, the ancient wisdom of Advent through the stories of familiar creatures of the Northeast. I'm going to read you about the chickadee. Nearly every winter day, the small flock would arrive a flurry at the feeder outside the window of Miss Milner's second grade classroom. Chickadee-dee-dee, she would sing. Chickadee-dee-dee, we would answer. Small round bodies with large round heads capped in black, they were acrobats twirling upside down on a feeder and on the pine bough brushing it. They didn't fly away when I pressed my nose to the window pane, but looked me in the eye. I was sure and peaked. Perhaps she was sparing us children who still felt the suffering of creatures, but Miss Milner didn't tell us that every cold night, these cheery birds walked a tightrope between life and death to greet us the next morning. Half an ounce of feather, flesh, and hollow bone, a chickadee in your palm would feel like the weight of 2 nickels. Like any living thing lightweight to its relative length and width, it loses heat quickly. So this little bird must eat continuously during the winter's short daylight hours to stoke its metabolic fires for the long night to come. Even so, on a below zero night, the fires can go out. Even tucked into the shelter of a tree hole, even with the ability to drop its body temperature substantially to save energy. A chickadee on a winter night burns through all the calories it ate during the day. Before dawn, as soon as there's light enough to see, the chickadee flutters out, famished, its tiny brain intent on seeds. Tiny its brain, but bigger now in Advent than in spring. I tipped my head at the chickadee, tipping its head quizzically at me. Inside that black skull cap, his hippocampus is bulged out of a precise map of his half-mile territory, an X marking each flap of tree, each bark or log crack where he stashes some seeds. Since last summer, his brain's memory center has been growing, adding neurons to record the location of every single cache of seed, thousands of them. As he eats them up through the rest of the winter, the map in his hippocampus will shrink. With the seeds map gone before the ice and snow, no wonder that the chickadee at Miss Milner's feeders is so ecstatic. Their winter stashes would last longer thanks to the bonanza, best the black oil sunflower seeds she poured out every morning. As I swirl and twirl and hop and flit about my feeder, they seem like a flock of St. Francis's, like the saint wed to the Lady Poverty. Every winter day, the equation of their existence is open. Will there be enough of what they need to take them through the dark night into tomorrow? And beyond reason, like the saint, they ask if the question is truly an opening, a freedom, a joy. Blessings and love to you all.
When we look into the heart, may our eyes have the kindness and reverence of candlelight. That the searching of our minds be equal to the oblique crevices and corners where the mystery continues to dwell, glimmering in fugitive light.
Habar Ghani, what's the news? My name is Reverend Abigail Ifatola Jefferson, and in my household from December 26th through January 1st, we celebrate Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is a key Swahili word meaning first fruit. It was created in 1966 by Dr. Mulana Karinga, a professor of African studies. Kwanzaa is a 7-day cultural festival, a celebration of community, family, and African cultures. And it was established as a way to help those of us of African descent reconnect to our African heritage. The Kwanzaa holiday is inspired by African harvest celebrations that take place on the African continent. Today, Kwanzaa is not only celebrated in the United States by African Americans, but it's also celebrated by millions of people all around the world who represent a wide range of ethnic diversity. There are 7 principles, 7 days represented by 7 candles, and there are 3 colors, red, green, and black. The color red represents our blood, our people's struggle, our sacrifice to survive. Green represents the land, the motherland from which all people have originated. And green represents our hope for the future. The black people of the world is represented by the black candle. So today, I'd like to teach you the 7 principles with a call and response chant. I'll go first and you're coming second. So are you ready? Let's go. Kwanzaa, Kwanzaa in 7 ways. Kwanzaa, Kwanzaa in 7 ways. Kwanzaa, Kwanzaa in 7 days. Kwanzaa, Kwanzaa in 7 days. Umoja, Umoja, it means unity. It means unity. Kuchi Chakalia, Kuchi Chakalia, self-determination, self-determination. Ujima, Ujima, collective work and responsibility, collective work and responsibility. Ujama, Ujama, it means spending our money wisely, it means spending our money wisely. Nia, Nia, purpose, purpose, kuumba, creativity, imani means faith, Kwanzaa in 7 days, Kwanzaa in 7 days, Kwanzaa in 7 ways, Kwanzaa in 7 ways, Harambe, and Harambe means working together or pulling together to get the job done. So come on, you all, let us continue to work together to celebrate the return of the light. And remember to celebrate the dark, because in the dark we find the mystery of life. We find the sacred. We find the most holy of holies. Asheo.
When we are confined inside the dark house of suffering, that moonlight might find a window.
When we become false and lost, that the severe noon light would cast our shadow clear.
When we love, that dawn light would lighten our feet upon the waters.
Happy Chanukah. My name is Chani Getter. I was ordained at One Spirit in 2009. I am joining you virtually from New Jersey, which is part of the ancient homeland and traditional territory of the Lenape people. Welcome to our holiday party. Tonight is the last night of Chanukah. It is the 8th night, tomorrow being the last day. Jewish days begin in the evening. Chanukah always falls during the last quarter of the moon and walks into the very first quarter as it moves through the new moon, since the Jewish calendar works in both the lunar and solar system. The darkest night, when perhaps there is more or less daylight, but the night itself is very dark, when the new moon begins again. And that is when we bring the light in, when it is darkest. I will light the menorah. We will recite the blessings together. 3 blessings. The first blessing, usually the third one is only said on the first night, but for many of us, this is the first time we are lighting Chanukah candles this year, and so we will recite that blessing together. The first blessing says that we are commanded to light the Chanukah candles. The second blessing is about God doing miracles for our ancestors and continuing to do miracles today. And I think about that as my daughter, a nurse in a hospital during COVID, will be getting her immunization shot very soon during this holiday season. And I think about that miracle for her. And the third blessing is about being grateful that we have been sustained and we have lived to this moment. I will light the shamash first, which is the first candle, recite the blessing, and then sing about these candles as I light the menorah. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Chanukah. Notice that some people will light with candles while others with oil. I will light my menorah with oil because the miracle happened with oil. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, sha'asa nisim lavoteinu, bayamim hahem bazman hazeh. Blessed are you, God, Spirit of all that is, who has done miracles for our ancestors, and continues to show us miracles to this day. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehachianu v'kimanu v'hegianu lazman hazeh. Blessed are you, Spirit of all that is, who has sustained us, who has given us life, who has brought us to this moment, to this moment. Bizman hazeh al yedei kohanecha hakedoshim kol mitzvas shmonas yimei Chanukah Haneres halalu kodesh heim v'ein lanu reshut lihishtamesh bahem ela lirotam bilvad k'dei lo tzahallel l'shabeh al nisecha v'al niflo secha v'al yeshu osecha. Happy Hanukkah.
I would like to invite everyone to turn their cameras back on and for all of us to light a candle together. As we grow old, that twilight would illuminate treasure in the fields of memory. And when we come to search for God, let us first be robed in light. In night, put on the mind of morning to feel the rush of light. Spread slowly inside the color and stillness of a found world.
So, dear friends, we are nearing the end of our ceremony here. At this time, we would invite you to write holiday messages on the chat if you feel inclined to do so. We would also like to thank everybody who showed up and everybody who participated in making this wonderful ceremony work together. And finally, I want to leave you with, again, an image of the fact that the universe, our universe, it has at least 6 times more dark matter than visible matter. We are literally specks of light floating in this immense vastness that we can't see, can't measure. And how wonderful that it is so. And before we start having a conversation here, the CEO of One Spirit, Eileen Samit, would like to speak to the group. Eileen.
Thank you, Sushmita, and thank you, Garrett, for arranging this remarkable evening together. And thank you again to all of the participants who really brought such a flavor of all of the holidays and such a flavor of being together in community at One Spirit. As I thought about tonight, I had a sadness about not being together in our space and welcoming people we haven't seen for a while and grabbing hugs and sharing food and sharing community together, and even making faces to the people who are on Zoom and bringing them into the space as well, as we do every year. But just having the opportunity to see all of your faces, to see all of what One Spirit is as a community, and welcoming newcomers here tonight as well. It's just such a wonderful opportunity for us, and it brings me a lot of joy. And I'm so thankful to be with all of you. So we're going to go into chat rooms for people who would like. But before that, I just wanted to let you also know of a wonderful gift to One Spirit, which was given by a donor who has offered all donations made to One Spirit during this holiday season. Up to $20,000 will be matched. So what a wonderful opportunity to bring even more to our community during this time. So David is going to put into the chat a link for those of you who are so moved to support One Spirit at this time. It's onespirit.org/giving. So however you show up at One Spirit, we are so grateful for you being here and so thankful. And thankful to this amazing team that led this remarkable evening for us. Thank you, Sushmita and Garrett, and all of the guests.